Hello everybody, welcome back to the Desmo Works channel, and today is video 2 in the Ducati 916 engine rebuild. So I'm going to do this video today slightly different to when I did the 748 build. So because you've seen these engines put together before, what I'm going to do is clean and prep the cases, but then I'm going to talk through all the bearings that are fitted within the cases. So I'll talk you through their manufacturer's numbers. So if you want to get those bearings yourself, you'll be able to order them off of the correct description. So I'll talk through how a bearing is identified and what the numbers and letters, etc., how they relate to ordering a bearing. Okay, so first thing I've got to do is clean the cases because they're in quite a mess, so let's have a look at them. Okay, so bench is clear of everything. So actually the paint doesn't look great, but because this is just being put together so that I've got a spare engine, it's not terrible, it's just not great. But I'll give this a clean up, get rid of all of the gunk. There's bits of grease and everything in there, and then I'll pull out all of the seals and bearings after I've got the cases into a sort of semi-decent state so that we know what we're working with. Okay, so let's get the cases split apart and stick some part washing fluid through it. Me clean the cases with solvent cleaner. What I'm now going to do is just use a biological degreaser so that I can just get rid of the sort of clean fluid, and then I'll blow it through with compressed air, and then we know we're working with a perfectly clean set of cases. So do that quickly. Okay, so that's both cases cleaned with solvent and then followed up with a biodegradable degreaser as well. So we're completely clear of the solvent, which stops any carryover. What I did off camera is I air blew every sort of nut and bolt hole out so that it was clean. No point in doing that. So what I'm going to do is pop out all the bearings and then take you through the different types of bearings and what they're for and how you identify them. Okay, so what I've got to do first is I've got to take out the retaining bolts for the clutch shaft, the retaining plate for the gearbox output shaft, and then the circuits for the timing shaft that goes across the top. So let's do those quickly. Okay, so that's all the retaining hardware out the way. Interestingly, this circlip had a washer behind it, so I'm just wondering if that was a bit loose in there and somebody's packed that out, which I've never seen before. And then you would have seen that I heated these two closed off Allen headed bolts. It's because they do have a tendency to strip, so by heating it you just make them a little bit looser, and then tapping them you break any sort of stiction and lock, so usually they come out without having to damage them. Okay, what I'm now going to do is push the bearings out. So you can do the gearbox output shaft and the timing shaft from the opposite side. As you can see there for the timing shaft, and we'll take this seal out so we can push the gearbox shaft through. The challenging one, as you'll see here, is the bearing that supports the opposite end of the clutch output shaft. You can't get a clean contact face on the back face. So a few people have asked how you get this one out. Now the most obvious way is to use a blind bearing puller. So push that in, slide hammer it out. You can also just tap it on the back face with a punch, but the problem is that's going to come out uneven, so you do run the risk of damaging the bearing housing slightly. So what I'm going to do, I'll pop out the gearbox shaft, the timing shaft, and then what I'll try and do is just give it a little bit of a start from the back with a punch. Okay, so all the bearings out the cases, all laid up here. That's a spare one just so I could show sizes. What I'm going to try and talk about now is how you can identify the bearing type. So obviously you can use the parts numbers and the parts catalogue, but you can also find there's an identifier in there. And most bearing manufacturers follow the same convention in that the first letter or digit is the bearing type, the second one is the bearing series, but the first two can make a combination of just being the bearing series. So type 7 dimension series 3 for 7.3. The third and fourth digits relate to the size. So for the first four digits, when it goes 1, 2, 3 and 4, that's a direct size comparison, and then when you get above 0.5 you times it by 5. So 7 times 5 means this internal diameter here is 35 millimeters. Okay, if you look at the gearbox bearing, there is a clearance type fitting size as well. So you've got 6305, so we've got a bearing type 6 series 3 0.5, which means 25 millimeters in the center, and then C3 is a clearance. So it actually means that this is quite a loose clearance, because if there's no nomenclature after the on the suffix, i.e. it's just C0, that means it's standard, and then C1, 2 and 3 goes on to say how loose the actual bearing is, and it means that as it gets warmer the clearance is closed basically. On these cylindrical ones you'll see it's 2NU. Now NU stands for cylindrical roller bearing. So if you look inside there you can see again, instead of balls you've got cylinders, and this is held in a fibrous case. 03 is the size rating, which is 17mm, but that is not that gap there. This actually has a collar that fits inside it that's sat on the gear shaft there. That would normally sit like that, and what it's giving you is the 17mm measurement is across there. Okay, because that there is the whole bearing setup. That sleeve in there and this bearing is just that's stuck on the gear shaft at the moment. So sorry. And then the timing shaft one, we've got NU for cylindrical. It's got a 2 immediately after that before it goes 02, which means that that is a size in series 2. The 02 is the internal diameter gain, and then the ECP is a suffix that's just dictating how it's manufactured, or what the additional pieces around sealing and stuff like that. And this has got a fibrous case. Then on the opposite side we have a 6004, so again bearing type 6, series 0, the size is 04, so that should be 20mm, and it is. And then a C3, which indicates the tightness of the bearing. So again, this is one that's designed to run up to speed and expand slightly because it's loose. Okay. Then just as a little heads up as well, you can also on seals, if you want to get your own seals, you can find the dimensions listed on the periphery of the seal as well. And sometimes the manufacturer, which is Corteco, who make really good seals. And then you should have on there a series of letters, and this indicates the construction of the lips, whether it's a double lip, single lip, or sealing or not, or sprung. So, but the key piece you want to first find is the sizes. So this is 18, 30 with a 7 to 7.5, which is, so it's the thickness is the 7.5. Obviously the larger measurement, the 30, is the external size, and then the 18 is the internal diameter. Same again for the big seal. It's got paint over it, but 25, 52, 7. So 25 on the inside, 52 on the external diameter, 7 on the thickness. And again, it should be there, set of letters BASL, and again that is detailing the fact that it's got 2 lips and it's sprung on the back. The other thing to bear in mind with the main bearings is, being a 7 series bearing, that actually means it's an angular seating. So it's designed to be thrust, which means it can only go into the engine in one direction. So if you put this in the wrong way round, it will actually push the bearing out because there's an angled face in here. I don't know if you can make that out, but this diameter here is thicker than the back there, so it's angling up that way. So you've got to make sure these go in the right way, because if you don't, then you're going to completely screw your engine up. And in fact, actually, that's quite an interesting comparison, because being both of the same series, so a 7 series bearing, you can see this is 7307 and this is a 7207, so you can see same dimensions in the center, but because the the type size, so because we've got a different type of bearing, so the size classification is different, so the external diameter is different. So same internals, different externals. Okay, so but that was a basic overview on bearings and how you can identify and read the numbers that sit on the outside. What I'm now going to do is dig out some new bearings and stick the new ones into the cases. Okay, best laid plans of mice and men. I have this right hand side case. I've got all the bearings in the correct. So these are 63005C3s with the metal cage. The later ones come with fibre, so I've got fibre ones, but I don't want to mix and match, so I'm going to try and get the correct one of there. I'm also short of the renumbered bearing that goes in this side over here, sorry, and then there's a larger bearing that goes in here than the so the later engines have got slightly smaller bearing that goes in on the left hand case, so I'm going to need to order one of those as well. So that is one of these, so 6004C3. On the later engines it's a 6003C3, so it's just slightly different size, so that puts me in a bit of a pickle. So what I'm going to do today, I'll get this case back together, so I'll get those bearings in, I'll push the main bearing in, and then I've got to order the other 3 bearings so that I can finish the cases off. Okay, let's get these bearings in. Okay, so right hand case is fully completed. We've got the new timing shaft bearing in, the right hand main bearing in, the clutch shaft bearing in, and then the gearbox output shaft hold inside plus its little collar. And then on the left hand cases we've got the main bearing, but I still need to order an output, the clutch shaft support side bearing, and the slightly larger timing input shaft bearing as well. Okay, so that's it for this video. Unfortunately, I didn't realise I'd run out of stock on some of the earlier bearings, so I've got plenty of the later bearings. But in terms of originality for that 94 engine, because it's being built as a 94 engine, I'm going to try and get the original solid metal race bearings for the gearbox output shaft, and then I obviously need to get the right sized intermediate shaft bearing because the later ones are slightly smaller. So a bit disappointing, but hopefully a useful insight into how you read bearing numbers if you don't have a part number. Just be careful with the inner race cases because they can be different. You know, as I said during the description, if you had a fibre in there before, stick with a fibre, and likewise if you had a metal bodied one, stick with a metal bodied one, and don't mix them on each side of the shafts. If you've got a bearing that's got a metal bodied on one side, make sure you've got it matched in the same way, because then the characteristics of how those two bearings behave on that same shaft will be consistent. You don't want to have a slightly different behaviour in expansion, or the way it operates and becomes tighter due to speed and load and heat, etc. So try and keep a consistent bearing. Sorry if I sound a bit nasally, I am just getting over a cold, so my apologies if I sound I'm talking a bit like that. But into the Christmas break now, so probably won't be a video until the new year, and that will be hopefully getting the bottom end fully together. So we'll get the crankshaft in, we'll do a quick inspection on the gearbox to make sure that's good to drop in, we'll shim the cases, get all of that in, put all the external gears inside, the timing side, and then the primary etc. on the clutch side, and then that'll be the bottom end done. I'm then just going to be waiting on getting the barrels back so that we can start building up the lower half of the top end. What I'll do while I'm waiting is I'll refresh the two heads so they're ready to go, and I might be getting a set of SP cams to put in there as well, so we can add a bit of bling to the standard engine, if you like. So okay, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, chuck us a like down below. If you have any questions or comments, then please feel free to ask and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. And if you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Would really welcome you on the channel, and there's plenty more content to come. Thanks for watching. See you later now. Bye.